Hunter, do you have a day job outside of filmmaking?
I actually do not have a day job, and it's taken me a while to get to this point where I think for the last 2.5, 3 years I've not had a day job, but I think about day jobs sometimes. I definitely have those moments where I'm like, well, maybe I'll go back and dip in and take some easy cash for a little while, but no, at this point I don't.
At what moments do you entertain that idea?
It depends. I mean, it's definitely moments of frustration when, you know, you work very hard to raise a bunch of money for Walter, for example, and you know, we did a crowdfunding campaign. We raised $25,000, and we spent it all very fast. You know, it's basically accounted for, but it was sort of our strategy with how we're going to release this film. And once you put that money back out there into the system, you definitely have these moments where you're like, gosh, it's just too easy to spend this money, and you know, we're you know, looking at how long it'll take for the money to start coming back. It's a calculated sort of gamble that we face, but you have these moments where you go through the process and you see what the industry is really like, and you see how much competition is out there and how much content is out there, and you're like, is it really worth all this energy that we're not only that we're contributing, but now that others through crowdfunding and you know, our fan base is supporting to really, you know, keep after it, you know, for what you get in return. So, you know, you have those moments that just creep up on you, and then something inevitably happens where you calm down, and you know, something comes your way, and all of a sudden you're like, gosh, you sit down. A lot of times it's sitting down and seeing an audience watch your film and feeling it really have the effect that it's supposed to, or you get this wonderful email or a conversation that you have with somebody, and it sort of turns you back around and makes you realize it's like, this is, for whatever reason, this is what I was put on this earth to do, and I got to keep making these films.
So you have now 5 films under your belt.
Mm-hmm.
At what point of those 5 films were you able to walk away from a day job?
So I have 5 films I've directed, and there's been another one I produced with Mike Dion called Reveal the Path. And it was about the time that Mike and I came together on Ride the Divide that I was actually thinking I was done for sure. And I was working a day job, or I was getting ready to work a day job. I was kind of shifting things up, and so I shot this film with Mike, Ride the Divide, and I was like, okay, this will maybe be my last hoorah, you know, get out there. This was number 3. Number 2 was a total bomb, and I was like, I'll go shoot this, enjoy this moment, and then go work, and you know, work the agency life and see where it takes me. But I remember stepping into that agency life, and I kind of put one foot in and kept one foot out, and I was like, I really don't want to work full time. So I set up a nice little structure where I was essentially working full time, but I was contract position. And it was still that time though where I figured, you know, this is probably going to be the way it goes. But over time, as Ride the Divide came out and was released, you know, we saw quite a bit of success with that film, and that was about the time where I think I felt that, you know, I gotta just get out there again and give it another go. And that was probably, it really wasn't until we saw that film take off that I had that feeling that I could do this full time. But I realized that if I do it full time, I have to do it full time, and more than full time. You know, when we're filmmakers, we're working every hour we can, trying to get this content made, looking good, and then ultimately distributed and marketed. So, you know, you still have to check in every once in a while and go, okay, I'm breathing, there's actual money coming in from the titles that I made in the past. You know, we're figuring out a system to do this, but it's not easy. It's not easy money, that's for sure. And it's usually just enough to kind of get by, and you're kind of finding all the ways you can to continue shortcutting. So fortunately, it took that one title, that Ride the Divide, that kind of gave us, you know, gave me enough sort of confidence in myself, but also, you know, a little bit of cash flow, and then you know, being smart about my next few titles and not overspending and finding ways to make sure they get to market, and that they, you know, also continue to give a little bit of revenue stream to my approach.
Yeah, I find cash flow is like instant confidence.
Yeah,
so.
It's true. Cash is confidence.
It really is.
Sadly,
I have to say it.
sadly,
I know.
but.
So what would you advise to another filmmaker who has probably lived that 40-hour-a-week life, as most of us have at one time, and training themselves? I know we talked about it briefly, because it seems like if I remember correctly from some videos I watched, you were close to going back before you did Walter?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to keep questioning, why you're doing this. Is it worth it? Are the sacrifices you make? Unfortunately, the corporate world that you see around you, that so many of your friends are investing in, and getting return for, is tempting at times, just because you see people living this life where they get things and they buy things and they consume, but that's not necessarily the right lifestyle for everybody. That's certainly not going to guarantee happiness. It's not going to, fulfill you if you're somebody who needs to be creative and needs to tell stories and has these thoughts that you feel are important for the time. And if you ignore those, if you're one of those people and you're ignoring that, and you ultimately, dip into that corporate system, it's not necessarily going to deliver that happiness. So I think I got off track. I'm trying to remember the exact question, but ultimately.
Oh, no, and I think it's a great point
Yeah.
that you did talk about, because maybe people do need to kind of be able to buy what they need to buy, and then realize, like, okay, I'm kind of bored now. This is not, I don't know if I want to turn my life over for this many hours just so I can buy stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the initial question I had was, how would you train someone, or not train them, but advise them from making that shift? Because it's one thing to like say, I'm going to cut back, I'm going to cut out cable, I'm going to not go to Starbucks and things like that. But there's some drastic mindset changes I think you have to make, right?
Yeah.
It's not just going without the morning latte. I think you have to trust in things.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you really want to make films, you have to realize that you're going to give a lot to that, and you're going to put a ton of time and probably have to cut a lot of things out of your life. And at some point, you'll get lucky, and at some point, you'll work hard enough that the return will start to come. For me, it's a matter of, I look at film as a long-term investment, and I think most people look at it as a short-term investment. It's not your first project. It shouldn't, you're not likely to have that one-hit wonder and take off and totally have this career that's set. That's extremely unlikely, and it's something that we should be all dreaming about, and it will happen to a few, but for most of us, it's going to be something that we really need to take a lot of time with and find a way to have a lifestyle that allows you to keep producing films. For some people, that is the day job, and for me it was at times, and I never discount it. It may be again, there may be a point where I say I need to go back and work a day job for a little while and just have that experience and let my mind rest from having to always compensate and make it happen.